This is Buckeye Overtime with Marty Bannister.
How bad some of those other teams are in the junior circuit, which doesn't play real baseball, because you should ban the DH being the American
So
League.
simple. Maybe you need a refresher course.
And Greg Frey.
Told you, you always work it in. You always work it in before the show.
You got it in. You haven't had a Seinfeld reference yet, there, by the way. Just saying.
Anything goes. It's Thunderdome.
And we can work a Seinfeld reference right into the beginning of this program because we've hit Bizarro World. Good
Yes,
morning.
we have.
Welcome to Overtime on EBSN. He's Greg. I'm Marty. Producer Jake's at his table across the way from us. And, well, honest to goodness, when I was thinking about what we were going to do on the show today at about, 4 o'clock yesterday, I was saying, well, I really wanted to get into a lot of high school football talk and some other things as well, too. And then at about 6:30,
And then
the circus tent just went completely, just fell completely off the mark with the latest in the ongoing saga that is Ohio State, that is Zach Smith, that is Brett McMurphy, that is all of that, and we will delve into all of that. Coming up on the program today, our good friend George Lehner is going to join us at about 10:30 or so, and I wanted to have George on to be our sage, wise media guy, because George and I have been around Columbus covering things, myself since 1981. I think George a couple of years earlier than that. So we've both been through the Earl Bruce fire, and we both covered the Art Schleister story. If you remember way back then when he was all his problems surfaced, we both covered Earl Bruce. We both covered Jim Tressel. So I want to get George on to maybe, I don't know, soothsay a little bit and guide us through all of this. What the heck we're trying to figure out with all this.
let's get some wisdom over top
Yeah,
of
it's
all
just
this.
a nightmare. And plus, George has a brand new show, a retooled show, I guess, premiering on EBSN on Monday night, where he's going to go have a roundtable discussion on Ohio State football. So looking forward to that. And George again will join us. We want to hear from you, okay? We're going to get into
We
this.
think.
Yeah.
No, we
No,
do.
We do. We want to get into this. The Brett McMurphy thing that broke last night surrounding the alleged delivery of certain items to Zach Smith when he was employed at Ohio State has taken this to this level. Yeah, it's just nuts right now. I guess my question to you is, and we've been getting great response from you the last few weeks, and we want to keep that going. At our Facebook Live page is where you're watching. A lot of you are watching the program right now on Twitter as well. You can hit either one of us up on Twitter. You see our Twitter handles at the bottom, at Marty Bannister, at Greg Frey. Obviously, a lot of folks are very upset with the way the media is handling all of this right now. In your opinion, what's the media's role in this right now? How should we be covering this? What's the best way to go about this right now? Obviously, it's there are certain factors of the media, or certain facets of the media, I guess, that have taken us to an entirely different direction right now. And I think you've got to put Brett McMurphy either at or near the top of that list because of the way he's handled this and the stories he continues to break. What is your response to all of that? How tired? Obviously, you're tired of it. I think we're all tired of it right now. But how should the media cover this? What should we be doing with this? Should we leave it alone? Obviously, it's a big story. It deserves coverage. But what should we be doing with it right now? How sick are you of looking on Twitter every day or looking on your Facebook page or hearing everybody with comments about what they think they know? Because, honestly, the only people who really know what's going on right now, there are about 6 of them. And, Greg, that's that committee that will have its decision finalized, they've announced, by tomorrow. Those are the people that know what is going on in this investigation right now. The only ones who know what's going on right now.
Well, they've announced by tomorrow, but the president also said that they're going to take their time,
right,
if I may paraphrase. So
right.
I'm not sure that we're going to get anything by tomorrow.
Well, that's true. Well, they have said that the investigation will be completed on Sunday, and then they will hand the investigation, their results, to the president, Michael Drake, and then he will go through his deliberations. So, but again, want to hear from you. Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube is where you can find us right now. What's your reaction to all this? How tired are you of this daily, seemingly news dump? And dump is probably a very good word for this right now because of where this is at. So we want to hear from you. Hit us up. We'll give you a chance to voice your comments. As we've stated before, that's what we do here on this program. I know a lot of other shows locally, you have to listen to a couple of guys give their opinions for 45 minutes, and then they might get around to your phone calls. Well, we want your questions, comments. We will get them on right here on EBSN. So that all being said, I think both of us have strong opinions. Thank you. We both have strong opinions on where this is at right now. And I'm going to give you a chance, Greg, being a former Ohio State quarterback and still obviously very tight to what goes on with a lot of different folks right now. Mm-hmm. What is your reaction to where this is at right now, the investigation and everything surrounding it?
Well, yesterday it threw me for a loop, and it's another it's I won't say laughable, but to me it's such a diversion from really what's going on. It's a shame that it's gotten to that point where it is a bit of a circus. It's this ugly divorce that's just gone viral, and it's like there's just thirst for the negative information, and it's just this volley back and forth between the parties, which is it's really sad. I mean, from a family standpoint, it is a very sad thing because these are real people. They're not characters, in a movie. They're real people, and they have to live their lives beyond this. And there's going to be clearly there's going to be some residue beyond this, no matter what, for them personally. And that I'm sad for that. Mm-hmm. But it's an overview of, everybody's asking, what do you think is going to happen? I got to ask this morning. I got to ask last night. It's just, what do you think is going to happen? And the longer this goes on, the worse I feel about it. Because to me, when you look at the potential scenarios as they play out, the unthinkable for me is that they sack Urban Meyer, and you mean the university says, you know what, we're done with this, and we're going another direction. From a fan standpoint, and a former Buckeye, that's the last thing I want to see happen. And for a long time, through this process, I'm thinking that's just not going to happen. He's okay. But as every day passes, I'm not so sure anymore, and that just scares me. I mean, it's you mentioned like a diversion, like yesterday was more of a diversion, and I would agree with that. I don't know how much that really applies to what really is going on here and what the decision is really about. But ultimately, it comes down to the university's got to take a stance. Right. One way or the other, they have to take a stance. And there's a couple issues at play here about this stance that they're going to take. And, you can only imagine what they're discussing behind closed doors as far as what road they're going to go. And I think that's what scares me a little bit about their decision. Because whatever decision they make, it's going to draw a ton of attention positively and negatively. So they want to get it right. And there really isn't no right at this point, I don't think. It's the lesser of two evils, I think.
Yeah, you're probably right about that, I think.
It's painful either direction they're gonna go.
No question. Getting some comments in already on our Facebook Live page, and thank you folks for joining us this morning. We're so glad you're with us. Kerry Whitaker says, "Oh crap, more and more mess. You've already fired Zach Smith. If they fire Urban because of someone else's household issues, or can they fire Urban because of someone else's household issues?" William Pratt, the investigation initially is about, did Urban Meyer follow procedures in handling Zach Smith? With all these other things coming to the surface, I don't think it's corresponding with the initial investigation. And William, I think that's a very good point, and something Greg kind of touched on, and this is what I feel about what this brought out yesterday. Number one, the release yesterday of this story or whatever it is you want to refer to it, involving Zach Smith having items of a sexual nature delivered to him at the Woody Hayes Center. All this is one more thing that the committee now, I don't know if they're again, I can't, this is all speculation. If they are going to, how much time they will spend on having to look at something like this, and does this bring to their minds, are they concerned about the culture of the program and the type of people that Urban is employing? Do they worry about that? I'm not saying that that's the case, but I just wonder if that suddenly falls into their, I don't know, the way they're looking at this story, Greg, and the way they're investigating all of this right now. Because something like this diverts you from the core issue of what you're supposed to be looking at right now.
Agreed.
And a lot of people right away dismissed this and thought, it's garbage. It's right. Brett McMurphy trying to get back. He's trying to get back at Ohio State. He's trying to bring the program. That may all be true. It may, but all it is, and this is, again, just simply my opinion, it's one more thing that the committee has to go, oh my gosh, what is this?
So it begs the question of, so they've met with Zach, correctly? Right?
Yes.
Allegedly. They've met with him and his attorney probably.
Right.
So you can only imagine the conversation towards the end. They say to him, hey, Zach, is there anything else we need to know that we don't know right now?
We don't know right now. Yeah.
So, I mean, they had to ask that question. So he was put on the spot, right? And how did he answer that? He could have saved himself a lot of trouble by saying, you know what, yeah, there's more, and here's what could come out.
Yeah.
And he could have saved his rear end if there's any to save, right? I don't think they're going to rehire him, but You know, you
that's
had to ask that
gonna
question.
happen. Yeah, no question about it.
But my point is, they should have already known about this.
I agree. Jake?
And Kerry Whitaker on Facebook makes a point. Are they really going to fire Urban because of someone else's household issues?
Right. I brought that up a moment ago.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a very
point.
good question, and I think that deserves certainly some consideration because, again, as I mentioned, I think one of the things that you have to kind of circle around in all of this is the core and the culture of the program. How much of that is a concern to this committee in what they're looking at right now? I just wonder if that's playing a big role in this.
Right. And it may have to. I think, again, isn't the core issue of how did they handle the situation back in 2015? Was it reported? Did they handle it correctly? And from everything we know, it appears that they handled it. Now, did they do it by the book? We don't know, but it was handled. We know the athletic director was involved. Mm-hmm. We know that Coach Meyer was told. So we know that.
Right.
So if that's the core issue, then it's a matter of was it handled correctly or not.
Exactly.
But in the bigger picture, the more this stuff comes out, then the committee's got to say, well, is our coach really taking care of business?
Right.
Right. Or the, is it out of control over there? You got a coach that's allegedly having a what do you want to call it, relationship with the staffer, mm-hmm. which came out. So again, that probably was known by the committee, right? So they're thinking, okay, you're letting all this stuff happen. I mean, what's going on? What are you doing?
Yeah, and again, I think that goes back to the core and the culture part of all this.
Right.
That has to be that
right.
I think at the initial part of this investigation was certainly. Well, I can't say certainly, but just from speculation-wise, I would think had to be at the top of their list, mm-hmm. figuring out exactly what's going on over there at the Woody Hayes Center.
Right.
Who are you bringing in? Who's going out and recruiting? Who's going out and representing our players, our university? Who's doing all this for you right now?
In a sense, it kind of gives them a chance to review everything. Say, hey, the state of where we're at with the program. Yes, we're looking at this situation, but really we're digging a little deeper. Are you really doing what we think you're doing or not?
Right, exactly. Again, hit us up, Facebook Live, YouTube, and Twitter. We want to hear your questions, comments. How should the media be covering this right now? Obviously, you're sick and tired of what the media is doing in all of this and these daily stories or these seemingly daily stories that come out. How should the media, I'll throw myself into that certainly, Greg as well too, because of the work he does. He's diving out of the way.
Am I part of the media?
He goes palms up when we throw him part of the media, but right there. How should we be covering this? Should we just it's impossible to be quiet about this mm-hmm. because of where it's at. And that takes me to another point I wanted to bring up. Ohio State had there was a media window this morning for the folks to get in and watch the team stretch, work out, do some things before practice started. A very quick window. I think it was a half hour or so. No questions. No one allowed to talk to the players, talk to the coaches, anything along those lines. Now, Ryan Day issued a statement yesterday after practice, updating everyone on where things are at. Again, if you don't know, Ryan Day is the interim head coach right now of the football team. And I found the last part of that statement very interesting, where he said, in closing, I would like to thank members of the Ohio State University administration and the athletics department for their patience in all of this, their guidance and support. I would also like to thank members of the Ohio State Media Corps for their patience and understanding.
And why do you find that interesting?
Well, obviously,
Mr. Media Person.
Obviously, and our guest last week, Bill Rabinowitz, I thought put a great tweet out yesterday where he talked about how obviously fans are upset with the media, but they have to understand, and I'm paraphrasing what Bill said, the media's trying to do its job, because where do you fans get the majority of your information about this football team from? Where do you get it from? You get it from us. You get it from the newspaper. You get it from Twitter. You get it from – so keeping the media out keeps you fans from learning more about your favorite football team.
Right.
And right away, there were a lot of folks that jumped on Bill for that. Oh, sorry, you're getting your rear end all in a bunch now because you can't get in and cover. He's just doing his job.
Yeah.
And our job helps you follow the team that you like the most.
Right.
That's all. It's all part and parcel to all this right now. And that's why I asked the question at the top, how should we be covering this right now? Should we be doing anything with this? Should we just let it go until the committee decides and releases its investigations, the results of its investigation? That part of it, I think, is worth bringing up as well, too. But Producer Jake, what do you have?
Yeah, the last part of that letter, too, I thought was interesting, where it signed Go Bucks Ryan Day. He doesn't give himself a title. It's not interim head coach. It's not, it just kind of was.
Right.
It's Ryan Day. So
Right.
that was kind of a little curious when I saw it.
I think it's a good move. He doesn't need to, it's not a position for him to lobby for the job. I think he's got to be careful with that, and he's smart enough to know that.
I agree. Some other comments on our Facebook page, if I'm not mistaken. Zach Smith wasn't charged or something, so I can see why the school didn't do anything about it. But I'll also be on Smith. Hey, keep your laundry at home. Don't bring it out to the school. That's, again, a very good point as well, too.
Right.
And that's, I think, again, why all this core and culture part of it, I think, is worth bringing in. I wanted also, too, on the show today, to bring up some things about some of the dealings I've had with some of the key players in all of this, to kind of maybe help you get an insight into the way some of these people handle themselves. I'll start with Brett McMurphy. I've met him a couple of times on sidelines of football games.
Okay.
And I saw him there. I knew what he was doing with ESPN. So I just wanted to start up some kind of a conversation just to say hello and everything. He was very cordial. This has been, I want to think the one time was, I think at the Sugar Bowl when Ohio State played Arkansas. That was in the midst of right about time all the tattoo stuff came out a little bit later after that. And he was very cordial. He asked me some questions about Ohio State, what it was like to cover Ohio State, that sort of thing. No problem. Then I saw him a year again later during Luke Fickell's reign as head coach, and he right away was asking, hey, have you guys heard, that Urban's probably going to be the new head coach and all these other things. And I don't remember my response, but he said something along the lines of, he's a handful to deal with. Now, I don't know what that – at that time, I didn't really think much about it or what that meant. So fast forward a little bit. At the Gator Bowl that year, when Ohio State played Florida, we had a chance to talk to some of the members of the Florida radio crew, and they basically said the same thing. He's a handful to deal with because he doesn't – if you're talking to him or interviewing him or sitting around, he doesn't have time for – you and doesn't want to sit around and just gab. Like, there are a lot of coaches that will sit down in their office with you and you can spend 45 minutes in there.
Right.
This guy isn't one of them.
Yeah.
This guy is not one of them.
Yeah. And he never has been.
No, and that's the point. Never has been.
Right. That's not who he is.
That's just the way he is. That's that Bill Belichick type mentality, I guess, or the mindset that he has. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's just the way that he is.
Right.
So I think a lot of guys, maybe Brett McMurphy, one of them, might have been rubbed the wrong way by the way that Urban may have asked a question or may have responded to something that he said. I don't know. And maybe that's fueling some of this. I don't know. But I'm just trying to give you some insight as to ways these people that I've met on a couple of occasions, the way they've kind of handled themselves. I don't. If I ran into Brett McMurphy today in the airport, I wouldn't know him. I just remember seeing his press credential on the sideline and talk to him that way. The dealings I've had with Zach Smith on a professional level have been very good. He answered every question I ever asked him. Of course, we dealt with football. We weren't talking about all this other stuff because no one knew about all this other stuff at that point, or at least had an idea about all this other stuff, and that was just the way that it worked. So I had no problems. He was very professional in the times I dealt with him on a professional level. So whether all this was apparent, I can't tell you. I know you've dealt with Zach a lot. You probably know him a lot better than I do. I don't want to put words in your mouth or have you try to give us things, but I don't know the man from that standpoint. You obviously do.
I've known Zach since he was in high school. I mean, I worked with him he was a young aspiring quarterback at Dublin Kaufman, and then playing defensive backs. I watched him play high school football, and I watched him, watch his career develop, and haven't been that close to him ever since he started coaching down in Florida with Urban Meyer. But I'd see him from time to time, and I knew Courtney as well. I've been friends with the family. I've known Lynn Smith for quite a long time, and all of Earl's daughters and their family. So they've kind of been family to me, really. So it's kind of surreal from that standpoint. And I just my heart really goes out to the family because I can't imagine having all your dirty laundry tossed out in the media like that, and a lot all the finger pointing, all that. That's just so unfortunate. And again, they have to go on living their lives. And the thing I'll say about Zach is, from the only interview that I've seen, he looked very humble. And clearly, this would humble you, and he owned up to everything. He knew he made some mistakes. He wasn't a great husband, and and from a personal standpoint, here's a guy that got fired from his job. Has been through the ringer with his marriage. He's got to go on and live his life,
right?
And as a friend and somebody, friend of the family, I'm just hoping that he can bounce back from this in a positive way and be a better person.
Right.
Whatever he ends up doing, and be a better dad and maybe a better husband when that opportunity presents itself. So those are the things that really matter to me from a personal standpoint.
Sure, absolutely. A couple more comments coming in our Facebook Live page. Brian Shepard, where do you idiots get your pay? From us, the fans. I will no longer watch any of your dribble. What did we say, Brian?
What did you do wrong?
That's good.
I would like to know exactly what we did wrong in the last 20 minutes.
Can you define dribble?
Yeah.
Well, give us your insights.
A little bit more. Yeah.
Give us your insights on what you think we should say.
Exactly.
That's
the question I asked.
Right.
That's
the question I asked.
Yeah.
I would love to know.
What should we say?
Brian, give us a call. 1-866-217-1966. Let's have this conversation.
Yeah. That's why we're here.
That's a little stunned at that. Okay, but that's your opinion.
That's the beauty of this show is you guys get to interact.
You're more than welcome.
We don't have all the answers all the time, do we? We like to think we do. But
I do. You don't.
Thank you.
I don't. Kenny McClellan, do you think Urban will be back to coach the Buckeyes before the season opener? Well, that's, again, all of this right now. And I echoed Greg's point a short time ago, Kenny, that the longer this goes on, the more anxious I think a lot of us get about what this could be and how long this will go. That part of it does concern me a little bit right now.
Concerns me a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I will say I'm glad Ryan Day made that statement, and I feel like if there's a positive with the team is the focus isn't on the team right now, that they can just focus on preparing, and there's some good in that,
right? That
they can really gel as a team, and you can only imagine that this is helping bring them closer together. I would hope.
Exactly.
I would hope. But if you lose your head coach at this time of the year, that's a lethal blow.
No question.
There's a lethal blow.
No question. Weeks before the season starts, again September 1st, when Oregon State comes to Ohio Stadium to face the Buckeyes. Justin Hughes gives us a thumbs up. I hope that's directed at us, Justin, but if not,
we'll take it.
I appreciate it. I'm a little concerned about your Steelers avatar. That worries me a little bit. Oh, by the way, the Browns aren't going to the Super Bowl now. They lost last night to Buffalo, 19-17 in preseason, so all you Browns fans.
But I liked what I saw. I'm going to say that.
Is that right?
I see hope.
Yeah, okay.
I see hope.
All right. Drew responds on Facebook, why would they fire Urban for something that's happening in someone else's household? And that, Drew, I think is the center question, I think, to a lot of this right now, that everyone's trying to figure out how much meaning does that hold?
Well,
how much does it hold?
He makes a good point. It's in somebody else's household, but it came into Urban's house. The house of Ohio State.
That's right.
That's the problem.
Yeah.
It was dragged into there, unfortunately, and that is a reality, especially after we saw yesterday with the shipments that arrived at the wood. I mean, that's tough.
Yeah, it is.
That's a harsh. You can laugh all you want, but that's
no. I'm laughing at just that you're right.
Right,
The absurdity of all this.
There's some comedy in that. I mean, but it's absurd. Really, it is. But it's the truth, and that's unfortunate. And
the one thing that keeps going through my mind after all of this, and if the committee is looking at this, can you imagine 90-year-old Joanne Davidson having to look at this? She's a member of the committee. I feel sorry for her having to look at something like this.
What was ordered again?
Yeah, man.
What is that? What is that?
I don't know. I don't know. Josh Cashinger checks in. Ultimately, if Urban is suspended, how many games does he get? That's a question too, I think, which I think is a good one, Josh, to bring up, because that's been speculated as well too. That might be the I don't want to say the easy way out of this for Ohio State, but it might be something that they decide, let's do this. Let's show that we're making a statement here.
Yeah.
Let's sit him down for a couple of games. Hey, we know it's serious. We understand all of this.
Right.
We have to send some kind of a message, and here's the message we're sending.
Right.
And again, the one name that we haven't mentioned yet that you have to wonder just how tenuous his status is right now is athletic director Gene Smith.
Yeah.
And whether or not he falls into any of this as well, too, because if everyone says this all happened on Urban's watch, well, who's winding the clock?
Well,
It's Gene Smith.
The comments by the president this week, he was asked about the athletic director. Boy, he avoided that like the plague.
He did.
He didn't want to touch that. He's like, I'm just waiting until it gets on my desk. And, oof.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, Josh, I think that's probably as you ballpark all of this, that may be the, again, I hate to use this term, easy way out of this for Ohio State, because there is no easy way out of this.
No.
But this might be their way of saying, you know what? Here's what we're doing with this. We're sending, if it's a message, I don't know, but this is what we're doing right now. I don't know.
Last week he had Bill Rabinowitz on. He does a fabulous job, and I asked him if he could talk about potential scenarios going forward. He didn't want to go there, and I agree with that. But I think you got to think about that. What could happen, right?
Right.
I mean, the three simple solutions: one, you fire him. Two, he sits out a couple games. He gets he gets the slap on the wrist. Hey, you didn't cover all your bases. You need to sit out a few games. You need to go in timeout. Right.
That's right.
Or they reinstate him and they move on. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, we fired the bad blood. He's out, and we're moving on.
Exactly.
Am I missing anything else?
No, I think
are those the scenarios?
I think that you've probably covered them all right now. A couple other hits on our Facebook page, and again, thank you so much for giving us your comments. Matt Withrow, would Urban's remaining salary be a part of the final decision? I don't think there's any question about it. Because what is a $38 million buyout involved in this?
Still paying Trussell too.
Yeah, producer Jake in the
Yes,
background.
there are
still
some
paying,
contractual
there's still some money being paid to former
issues.
coaches. And people have told me when that question has come up, I've been on a number of talk shows in the last couple of weeks, and they all say, well, Ohio State's got oodles of money. They can cover that. Well, it's easy to say that about somebody else's money when you're not the one paying the bills. Yeah, $38 million makes seem like a drop in a bucket to an athletic department that makes millions of dollars a year. But, I mean, let's be serious now. That's you don't want to be writing checks for $38 million because it would be one check. It wouldn't be the buyout is a buyout. It's one hit as far as checks are concerned. At least the way I understand it. I could be wrong on that.
There's some.
The numbers boggle the mind.
Thad Matta and David and O'Brien as well. They had a buyout.
Yeah, former coaches.
High-priced former coaches.
Exactly.
And those dollars affect other sports. I mean, you got to realize that you got an athletic department that's paying for a lot of sports, not just football.
Largest athletic department in the country.
So there's some sports that are going to be affected. That again, we're hypothetical here, but doesn't it? It's interesting. It comes down to his contract. Is this renegotiated? So it's the fine line, and there's some of those details in the contract that are unfortunately really important right now.
And that is also part of, again, all of this is speculation, but a lot of folks have speculated that that's why this is taking so long, because you have lawyers involved in this right now who are trying to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and maybe they're trying to figure out a way to not have to pay the money. I do not know. That's all part of it.
There's so much we can speculate on that we don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, are Urban's attorneys defending him? Is it kind of a, is he in his own camp outside of all this? Is Gene Smith's got his attorneys? I mean, you can only imagine what's going on.
It's unbelievable. Charlene Ray, why is Urban responsible for another adult's actions? Gene Smith is the one who should go. So that's thank you, Charlene.
Well, and again, that's another scenario we can throw out there.
The core question.
Does he get tossed?
Yeah, as you see, Gene Smith right there. I would imagine that's a posture he's had a lot here lately, with that look on his face, trying to sort through all this as most everybody else is as well too. So again, EBSN Online. This is Overtime. He's Greg. I'm Marty. So glad you're with us. We love having all the comments. We're getting a lot of them. We really appreciate it, and we love hearing from you. Even Byron Shepard, who took shots at us, I think. I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure if that was directed at us.
We dribble.
Still waiting for his call.
We dribble.
That's right.
We're dribbling.
That's right. Lines are open.
What is dribbling?
I don't know. Dribble. I don't know.
Basketball.
Let's see.
Up and down.
Come on.
A very interesting tweet. I had it. Here it is. Nicole Kraft, who is a professor of journalism at Ohio State and works in the media, does some work for the Columbus Blue Jackets or for the Associated Press covering the Blue Jackets, put out a really interesting tweet after the latest comments came out, the Zach Smith thing yesterday. This is from Nicole Kraft. You can follow her at Nicole_Kraft, and I would advise you to do so. It's a very good follow if you want to know what goes through the mindset of the media and things like this. A reminder from the Code of Ethics at the as she teaches journalism classes. Balance the public's need for information against potential harm or discomfort. pursuit of the news is not a license for arrogance or undue intrusiveness. 2, avoid pandering to lurid curiosity, even if others do so. Makes a lot of sense. And unfortunately, I think that's the road that a lot of folks have gone down on this right now because of the rush to judgment on this, which we all know happened the moment this thing broke. I mean, how many people said, "Oh, he's gone. He's gone. No question about it. Urban's gone. This can't continue." And here we are 2.5 weeks later, and it has continued. So, another comment before we get our good friend, the soothsayer, our broadcast whisperer, if you will, George Lehner, to join us here in a minute. Nick Haralambous, aside of all of this, any work on how the team is progressing under the interim coaches, any ill effects?
Great question. Thank you. We'd love to be talking about the team, by the way.
Yeah,
there's a lot of great stories that are part of the team that aren't getting covered right now, and that's frustrating.
I think a lot of folks, even though many feel that Dwayne Haskins is the guy, how is he handling all this right now? He's basically had one moment of greatness, and that was in the Michigan game last year. And yes, it was in the Michigan game, and it was one moment of greatness. How does he handle now the pressure of being the guy?
Right.
You know this, that being a backup quarterback, what it's like to step into a situation like that. You did it in a Michigan game. It's not easy.
Well, and it's not easy getting ready for your first start. I remember not sleeping for about 3 weeks, and I remember, I mean, that day couldn't get here fast enough, and I woke up at 4 in the morning, the game's at 1 o'clock. I'm like, can we just get this over with? It's killing me.
Kenny McClellan, I don't think Urban deserves to be fired, especially if he did his job in reporting the allegations to his higher-ups. I believe he stated he did the proper thing by reporting it to his supervisors. But the thing, Kenny, again, I'll go back to, is that had a lot of people questioning his motives in this was at Big Ten Media Day when he did not say that at the beginning. He denied basically that he knew anything about all this, and then had to backtrack. That's the part that I think got a lot of people up in arms about this. All right. He is a longtime member of the media, and we are so glad that he is I guess maybe a founding member of EBSN and what we've been doing here over the years.
Absolutely.
Enjoying the good life now, but still contributes on a weekly basis here on EBSN, and we're so glad to have the soothsayer, the broadcast whisperer himself, the legendary George Lehner. Oh, George, please point us in the right direction right now. Can you do that?
Well, I don't think there is a right direction, Marty. And Greg, good morning, guys.
Good morning.
This is just such a soap opera saga. I think the thing that people have to keep in mind is what this committee is charged to do to begin with, and that is to investigate whether Urban Meyer did what he was supposed to do in terms of his contract, which, as we all know by now, is to report any kind of issues of domestic violence or allegations of involving members of his team or staff. And, all this other stuff is, the he said, she said, and the social media and all that. I mean, I think it's really easy to distract from what the main purpose is of this investigation. And, I think as far as we all know, I mean, those questions have all been answered for quite some time.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of the reasons, George, I wanted to have you on. I mentioned to Greg when we started the program about how you and I have both been around this area for many, many years covering stories. And I remember we were both covering the Art Schleister story when that broke, when Earl was fired. We were both there covering that. When Jim Tressel was fired, when Jim O'Brien, that entire situation. And you hit on a good point a moment ago about how the direction the media is going with this. It's vastly different than when you and I started in this, because at that time there was the Dispatch, there was the 3 TV stations, your radio station at the time you worked for, WTVN, the one I worked for, 1460, and that was about it.
Yeah.
That was about it. There was the Citizen Journal at that time, the old CJ newspaper. I'm sure not many remember that. But that was it as far as the media. Yeah. And now it's completely off the entire map is covered right now.
Well, and there was no social media at that point, obviously. And I came up through the ranks of being a journalist, and the Society of Professional Journalists has a code of ethics, and the code of ethics kind of spell out what the responsibilities are in terms of covering a story and all the elements that you need to do from a fairness standpoint, covering both ends, not letting your opinion have anything to do with it, and presenting both sides. And anyway, social media has a total disregard for anything ethical. I mean, they just do. They, the stuff that you've seen just in this, let alone on a daily basis involving social media. I mean, it's, all bets are off. I mean, it's a free for all, and that's why I think it's so important that fans don't lose track of what this is all about. Back to the, what did he know? When did he know it? What did he do? Kinds of things. I mean, that's what this is all about. The other stuff you can just kind of put off into a corner.
And I think that, to me, this kind of it's the day that the age that we're in, where you've got social media and there's this blur or this gray area of, people can say anything they want on social media, and I'll throw the fake news into that. I mean, there's a lot of fake news out there. That's the truth, and people buy that, and they want the negativity, and there's that lust for the negative. He said, she said, and this, to me, this is an example of that, which is really sad. That's kind of where we're at.
Well, Greg, I think there's been a desire to have that all the time. I mean, when you go back like Marty did and go back through all the so-called scandals that we've covered through the years, how many times have we gone somewhere privately and one of our friends will say, okay, what's the inside scoop? Yeah. What's the inside story? What are you really hearing about this?
Right.
And, social media is basically just putting it all out there now, where before, I think all of us as professional journalists tried to be fair and tried to follow the code of conduct that we learned as we went through journalism class or whatever. And, we didn't try and let our feelings known. We didn't, we tried not to make sure people, knew anything more than just the who, what, where, when, why, how, of a story. And it's not that way now. I mean, it muddies it so much. I think it's been fairly interesting from the standpoint that fans really see, probably for the first time through this charade, just exactly how difficult it is for investigators to go through and try and sort out the truth in an issue. You've got so much coming from so many different angles, you don't know what to believe.
Yeah, we touched on it at the top of the show about how something like this could the story that broke yesterday or came out yesterday about the delivery of certain items, how now this is one more thing that the committee has to go, oh my gosh.
Right, exactly.
Which takes away from the core issue of what they should be looking at right now.
That's exactly right, and that's what I think everybody has to be so careful to remember. That I think we've all been around issues of involving domestic unrest, and you hear all kinds of stories from both sides. And it's difficult to sort it out. But, from an investigatory standpoint at Ohio State, they're charged with the responsibility of what did Urban Meyer do? Did he do with the right thing? And if so, let's close it and be done with it. I mean, I probably come down on the line of so many people that think that, he's probably going to get a couple of games suspension, maybe the non-conference suspension, although it'd be awful to lose him for the TCU game, certainly. But, really you can make an argument, should you lose him for any game if he didn't do anything wrong? Mm-hmm. But I think they'll come up with a couple of things to, throw a little punishment out there and suspend him for a couple games. And, he'll have to make a donation to a cause of some sort. And then it'll be business as usual. And I just wish we'd get there sooner than later. Guys, I'm telling you, the one that I really question and quite frankly have an issue with is Gene Smith. I mean, first of all, where the hell is he? Second of all,
he's on vacation. He's on vacation.
Yeah, well, of course he's on vacation. You know, some would say that started a long time ago, but you know, he's not there to really take charge of this thing, and you know, his name has come into question on, gosh, how many of the quote-unquote scandals in the last 4 or 5 years. And he's always been able to escape them. But, you know, when you go back through all these incidents that have happened over the last 5, 6 years, the one common thread is Gene Smith. And, you know, the NCAA talks about lack of institutional control. You know, I don't understand how he keeps escaping.
But that's a good question, and I think it's he is conspicuous. What's the word I want to say? Conspicuously quiet. You know, and the fact that he was on vacation last week, I found very interesting. And maybe we can only try to read into it. I don't know, but he's been very quiet, extremely quiet, and that tells me something. I'm not sure what it tells me, but it's.
Craig, I'm not so sure that he shouldn't be quiet. I mean, I'm not sure everybody should be quiet.
Right.
You know, now here as a member of the media, you know, there's nothing that drove us more crazy than not being able to get any information. But this is certainly a case where it's been the opposite. We've had all the information that we could want, and I wish people would just keep their mouths shut.
Yeah.
You know, and just let it play out. And you know, I'm not so sure, you know, Gene Smith is doing anything wrong by being quiet and letting the investigation play itself out. You know, my question is, you know, Nero fiddles while Rome burns. I mean, what's been going on that we have all these issues within the Ohio State Athletic Department?
Yeah, because it has over the last 7, 8 months, it has not been a good stretch. I mean, no question about it. With all the things that have popped up over that stretch of time. On the line with us right now is our good friend George Lehner, EBSN Monday night host of his Buckeye Live show, which will go to a roundtable format. We're going to let George talk about that here in just a moment. But, of course, George, one of the founding fathers of this network and what we do here. And one of the reasons I wanted to have George on this morning was because all the stories that he's covered, all the stories that I've covered, wanted to get maybe a little background for you on just where this is all at and how this has just completely spiraled out of control. And, of course, George, a legendary broadcaster, Hall of Fame broadcaster as well here in the state of Ohio. And we're so glad that he's able to be with us here this morning. George, when you talked about Gene Smith, that was the one name, too, I think, that came up right away with a lot of people as to where is he, why isn't he making some sort of a statement right now? But I think you made a key point about how everybody should be quiet in all of this, but should they have said something at some point? Should Ohio State have put him out in the forefront to say something at some point of all of this to, I don't think it would have eased or soothed the masses, but at least to get a word out there?
Well, I think a lot of this, you know, as time goes, I think a lot of these questions will automatically be answered because, you know, depending on how things shake out, then I think we'll be able to look back and say, okay, now I know why he didn't say anything here, or now I know why we didn't hear anything about these people. And you know, some of this, Marty, I wouldn't be a bit surprised if, you know, these guys all know more than we'll ever know about it.
Exactly.
I mean, they know before they open their mouth the first day all about this thing. I mean, you know, Gene Smith is the one that supposedly ordered Zach off the road from that recruiting trip in 2015.
Right.
And, I mean, that tells you everything you need to know right there.
Right.
I mean, I'm serious, guys. I don't think I need to know anything more than that.
Right.
I agree. Yeah, you're absolutely right, George.
So, you know, I think to your point and to answer your question more directly, I think it's probably a situation where Gene Smith knows that, and Gene Smith knows that that's going to come out, and Gene Smith probably says, this is a good time for me to shut the hell up.
Yeah, exactly. A couple of comments relating to what we're talking about here on our Facebook Live page, George. Jeff Rhodes says, quote, Drake scares me, Drake being President Michael Drake. And David Frank checks in, someone should come to OSU's defense with all the crap McMurphy has spread. Maybe it's best not to acknowledge his stories, though. So I think that certainly centers around the topic we were just on right now.
And this whole Jeff Snook and Brett McMurphy thing is just, I mean, we could just go on all day about this thing, and that's why I'm saying I think that's all just better off just put over in a corner, and just deal with the issue of who knew what, and obviously we know that Gene Smith supposedly knew back in 2015. And so as far as what did Urban do and when did he do it, that answers my question. And, why something wasn't done then is anybody's guess. That's what the committee hopefully is going to be looking at. And then the other leg of that is, should Urban have done something, or should Gene Smith have demanded something be done or done something himself? But the Drake, I don't really have a feeling for Drake. I mean, when he came in, I never really thought he was a huge fan of the football program, although he certainly knows the importance of it. But he's never struck me as being much of an athletic guy versus an academic guy, and that's fine. But you get ADs in there that are more supportive of athletics versus academics, and vice versa. Ideally, you'd want a nice mix, I'm sure. But Drake has never struck me as one that's really going overboard in his attention of the athletic program.
So, George, in the big picture, with your years of experience, have you seen anything like this comparably?
God, no. Oh, geez,
There's your answer.
This is, and it's sad because it's dragging out now. This is going into the third week after Sunday. Of course, they say it's going to be done Sunday, and a report next week to the, the grand jury that is the Ohio State Board of Trustees. And Drake will make the final decision. We'll all know by this time next week, and that's fine. But, you just look at what that program has missed by not having its head coach at the helm during an important period of time like training camp. And Greg, you know that better than anybody. You go to schools like Alabama or Clemson or Wisconsin or any of the top-notch schools, these kids come in for the start of two-a-days, the start of fall camp. They need that leadership there from that head coach. This is when that head coach really solidifies the culture of that program before these kids. And I say kids because they're still, 19, 20 years old. But obviously, a lot of the upperclassmen know the culture of the program by now. But when you have a lot of the incoming freshman student athletes, it's important to get that culture established and have that leadership from that head coach. And it's sad that Ohio State has missed that this year.
No, that's a good point. And I've been to some of those practices, and I know – one of the values he brings to the table is just his intensity and his psychology background and preparing these guys for what's to come. And he is one of the best, if not the best, at that. And you're right. That's a critical time right now. But I'll also say that the coaching staff that he has in place, those guys, there's a lot of veteran coaches on that staff. And,
there's no question. It's a phenomenal staff.
Yeah.
I mean, you go through the resume of that staff. The coordinators obviously are top notch. Most of them can be head coaches anywhere.
Right.
But at the same time, there's no, there's, Urban is Urban.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody's going to replace that.
Exactly.
And he wants that program to be done his way. We all know what a control freak he is, and it's got to be killing him not to be around this program right now.
Can't imagine.
I can't imagine all that.
Well, imagine Ryan Day. Now he's got extra responsibilities.
Right.
And that could pull away. Again, can he handle that? Absolutely. He's a great guy. He'll be a head coach someday.
Right.
Can he handle it? Yes. But this is one extra thing on his plate that he wasn't expecting to do.
Exactly. No question about it. George, I'm going to let you go here, but I want to give you a chance to talk about the show, how you've retooled. I think it's a great idea how you're going to handle things on Monday night now with your Buckeye Live program.
Yeah, well, we were all together, what was it, Marty, 3 weeks ago now or a month ago now? We were all together, and I think we all had kind of a nice little discussion about some of the things we wanted to do going forward into the fall. And I am extremely happy that Jay Richardson is going to be back starting Monday night. And we're going to talk Buckeye football. And one of the things that we decided to try our hands at this year is kind of more of a roundtable discussion for maybe a half hour or so of each show, where guys like you and Greg and other former players come in, and we just sit around and just BS about college football in kind of a roundtable discussion format. And I'm anxious to see how that's going to work out. And we're going to have so much to talk about for so long. I think back to some of the other seasons, and Greg, you and I have been on the air for so many years together. Some of these games, some of these dog games during the season, you go into some of these shows and say, what are we going to have to talk about? There's nothing that's, anybody's, really, everything's going fine. Everything's going so smooth. How are we going to fill 2 hours? Well, with everything that's been going on with Ohio State, my gosh, I can't imagine we're just going to be jam-packed for the whole season, I think, with stuff to talk about.
I think you're right. That'll be Monday nights here on EBSN from 6 to 8 p.m. The Buckeye Live Show, 7 to 8. I'm sorry, 7 to 8. I gave George an extra hour there. I apologize for that. But that'll be every I'm sure you wouldn't mind that. But that'll be every Monday here on EBSN. George, I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning. Some great insight, as always, from you. We appreciate it. I'm sure everyone will be tuning in on
favorites. Monday. I love talking to you, and I really appreciate you thinking of me this morning. Thanks so much.
Not a problem. Appreciate George. George Lehner joining us here this morning, the Hall of Fame broadcaster, and as I mentioned, kind of our broadcast whisperer here at EBSN. Some sage knowledge from our good friend George Lehner. Again, Monday nights, 7 to 8. It's Buckeye Live. George and Jay Richardson joining us here on EBSN. A couple other comments hitting us on our Facebook Live page. Fred Latz, thank you very much, saying you guys put on a great show. We certainly appreciate that as well, too. Chris and Desiree Lease, Buckeyes for life. Upsets me how this situation was handled this close to the season. Jealous people can cause misery on innocent people's lives, and it's sad but very true. I hope the boys are suited up and ready to go. Well, again, we'll know on October the 1st.
They'll be ready. They'll be ready.
We'll know that.
They'll be ready.
Justin Standen. Marty, go back to Bama with your brother McMurphy.
Called you out. Your brother.
Take that, Bannister.
What?
You talked to him, therefore you know him. He's your brother.
That's right. So he's my brother.
You interacted with him, therefore,
that's
right?
Yes, since I've talked to him. Wow. Okay. Well, that's fair. I don't know where you got that impression at, Justin, with my brother McMurphy. I was just relating the times that I talked to the man. I can't help you any more than that. So thank you very much. Okay.
That's why we're here.
That's why we're here.
If you need to vent, that's okay.
That's fine.
We'll take it.
Give us a call. Let's vent.
If it helps you feel better on a weekend,
whatever.
We'll take it.
That's fine. I don't know what I said to give you that impression that I'm on McMurphy's side. I'm not. I'm really not on anybody's side in this right now, other than getting this thing done done properly.
And that's the sentiment I'm hearing from people that I'm talking to in the media.
Yeah.
That can we get this? They're frustrated. Like, can we get? Again, the emphasis is not on the team and the players. There's stories there that need to come out.
Right. Josh and Iris Collins, who do you put more stock in, Snook or McMurphy?
I mean, I know Jeff Snook better, so I think he's a credible source. I would go with Jeff Snook, and I don't know McMurphy that well, so it's hard for me to hard for me to say that.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, I know McMurphy simply from being on the sideline.
He's your buddy.
And talking,
he's your buddy.
And talking to him for a couple of minutes.
Right.
It might have totaled a grand total of 10 minutes.
If
it totaled that at all as well, too.
Right.
So, again, Jeff Snook is kind of in the same boat with me. I've met him on the sideline a couple of times. No great lengthy conversations with the man. I respect his work. I've read some of the work he's done. He does a great job, and that's about all I can tell you.
He gets thrown under the bus a little bit because he does because he's graduated from Ohio State. So
so right away they assume you're on Ohio State. You're on Ohio State side. No question.
Man, he's an excellent journalist and media person per se.
Exactly.
So I think he's coming from the standpoint of here's what I know.
Right.
And he put information out there that he got genuinely that that I think needed to be said.
Exactly. So let's see. Anything else? Bill Sofranco, thank you. Says, great show, guys. We appreciate that. We're doing our best right now. Dodging everything that's kind of been tossed at us here. We appreciate that as well, too. Let's see. Anything else right now? Again, EBSN is our Facebook Live page, is where you can find us. At Greg Frey 15. I'm at Marty Bannister on Twitter if you have any questions or comments there as well, too. I don't know who this Justin Standing guy is, but he's hilarious. Are you related to McMurphy? He asked me. Yeah, we are. Yeah, you got me. See, you got me, pal. You got me. This kind of goes back to George Laner's thing about about social media and how you can.
Don't you have anything better to do on Saturday?
It's a great place in the world. The social media is the easiest place in the world to hide. I appreciate you putting your name to it, though, Justin. Thank you. That's if that is indeed your name, I appreciate that. And no, I'm not related to Brett McMurphy, so thank you very much for that. Let's see what else is going on here. Again, if you missed it,
what else? High school football's going on. I mean, we're
going to get to that. Don't worry, we're going to get to that.
Thank you.
We're going to get to it. We have a lot of great things coming up with. Okay. I got producer Jake is giving me hand signals and everything. So get to that in a minute. Thank you very much. Again, just kind of recapping for you. Ohio State has announced that the investigation into head football coach Urban Meyer's response to domestic abuse allegations against former assistant Zach Smith will be completed Sunday, meeting the 14-day timetable that the school for itself set when announcing details of the probe. So, one more quick hit from our friend Justin Standen. I'm actually in Florida trolling you guys. All is good.
Excellent. We're envious.
Yeah.
So is George.
Yeah, so is George. So watch out.
And I forgot to ask George if he was calling us from his Lanai or his Lanai. How do you pronounce that? Is it Lanai?
In other words, out back by the pool.
Correct.
Shane Brook, I was in 4th grade when Frey quarterbacked my Buckeyes. Hey, there we go.
See, it's sooner or later it was going to come to me. That's a positive. I think that's good. I don't take that as a negative.
Yeah,
Thank you.
And Shane, do you remember the leather helmets that they wore without the face board, without the face?
I was a trendsetter with the visor. Thank you very much. I was a trendsetter.
That's right, Darth Frey. That's right, with the visor on. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, and all the questions you got for it.
Because they said I looked at my target. I'm like, well, you kind of got to look where you're throwing. I'm just saying. I mean, it
kind of works that way.
It does help when you look in the direction. Just saying.
Jeff Rhodes, have you heard of any recruits wavering because of this TMZ circus? Yeah. Actually, Bill Kurlick, who does a tremendous job covering Ohio State football recruiting, most of the time when he responds or has asked recruits, I haven't seen one yet that has said anything other than I'm still completely committed. Nothing is affecting my decision process in any of this right now.
I'm sure they're waiting.
I would think if this goes off the rails and Urban is removed from his position, that may change.
There would be fallout. Clearly.
There would be fallout, but right now, everything is every recruit that
look, if you're a recruit,
says everything's fine.
If you're a recruit, you want to play on national TV. You want to play in a place that's going to put you on Sundays, so that you're still going to come to Ohio State.
Exactly. This is overtime. We're going to go a little bit longer than 11 o'clock, Jake. Are you okay with that? Yeah, because we're getting a lot of great response here. So. Let's see. Jeff Rhodes, Frey, and Stoops sporting the visors. Yeah, there you go. Back to the visor. There you go. Adam Justice. I am exhausted with all the drama. Can we just get ready for the season?
Agree.
We should be in the playoff hunt. I don't think there's any question about that.
Agree.
That this team will be in a playoff hunt and has certainly the talent to make another serious run at this thing. That thing being winning the national championship, no question about it. So, no question there. Our friend Kerry Whitaker asked us last week about high school stadiums in the state of Ohio, high school football, with capacities and whatnot. I guess Kerry watches us in Texas. We appreciate that. Wanted to know what some of the larger stadiums were in the state of Ohio, and just to show you that we do listen to you folks who take part in our program, we certainly appreciate that. I went back and looked at some of the capacities of the largest stadiums in Ohio. Paul Brown Tiger Stadium in Massillon seats almost 17,000. That would be the largest. Warren G. Harding Mollenkoff Stadium in Warren seats about 15,000. In Mansfield, short distance from here.
Well, as we go through, have we been to these? Let's say between the two of us, have we been to these?
Paul Brown, yes.
Yes, check.
Warren G. Harding, yes.
I've been there, yes,
Arlen
check.
Field, yes.
Yes.
Parma's Robert C. Bolton Stadium seats almost 12,000. No, I have not been there.
Yes, I've been there.
Dayton's Welcome Stadium seats around 11,000. Been there many times. Called many games.
I played there.
Stadium. Did you really?
Yeah. Actually played there as a senior.
On that green concrete they had.
It was concrete. It was concrete.
Memorial Stadium at Troy seats about 11,000.
I've not been there.
What a great place to watch a game at, and the rivalry with Pick was tremendous there. Just love that. Steubenville's Harding Stadium seats about 10,000. Have not been there. Austin Town Fitch seats about 10,000.
Wait a minute, Steubenville's Harding State, isn't it called the Reno Sockotch Field? I'm just saying.
It may be
his
now.
names on the field.
It may be now.
Maybe the stadium's
the stadium
differently.
Stadium.
Okay.
Cincinnati Elder, the Pit seats about 10,000.
I can't believe the Pit. I mean, the Pit's a great place to play.
So you're saying they're breaking a lot of fire marshal regulations
Can they pack it in? Yes.
Absolutely.
And by the way, Gahanna's got to go down there next week. Oof, not where you want to start, at the Pit.
East Cleveland Shaw Stadium seats 10,000. So those are some of the largest. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's a great website, by the way, if you're interested in this, Carrie, our viewer, we appreciate that. OhioStadiums.com. We'll list every stadium in the state of Ohio by region and show you capacities and how to get there, and almost all of them have pictures as well, too. So it's a great place to go to get your high school football fix. Speaking of which, high school football fix. This program, we've had so much fun with you on Saturday mornings. We're going to shift gears, though, with this program. We're going to go to Wednesday nights starting, believe it or not, this Wednesday. From 7 to 9, we're going to have this program for you coming up here on EBSN. Greg and I will host it. We're going to talk Central Ohio and State of Ohio high school football. And our good friends from the Ohio High School League Association will be a part of the program, too. We're going to have coaches, players. The Western Real South Drumline is going to join us this Wednesday as part of the program. But this is where we'll be every Wednesday night. Mark your calendars. Bring the wife and kids to the Max and Irma's at the corner of Maxtown and Old 3C Highway here in Central Ohio. We'd love to have you come on out and join us from 7 to 9. Coaches, players, marching bands, you name it. Greg and I will even be there. That's the least of your concerns. But to come out and talk to the players, talk to the coaches, 7 to 9, and you can watch it live. Facebook Live, Twitter, YouTube, all the places you watch us now. You can watch us Wednesday nights starting at 7 o'clock, and that will be for the duration of the high school football season.
That is awesome.
Very excited
Can't wait.
about that.
I cannot wait.
Very excited about that. So we're looking forward to that. Let's see. Some other hits on our Twitter page here. Trent Zenkwitz checks in Blakewood High School Stadium. I did not see it on the list as far as capacities.
I don't think Lakewood. It doesn't have the stand.
Now, there are a couple of Lakewoods. I would imagine he's referring to the one near Cleveland because there's a Lakewood east of here in Licking County.
No, not that one.
It can't be
the one.
one.
He's talking about the one in Cleveland because I've been there because that's where
Cleveland,
St. Ed's plays their home games.
That's right.
It's not that big. The opposing stands are, it's big enough, and playoff games are played there, so it's big enough to hold playoff games. So there you go.
Yeah,
it's a nice field.
Yeah, good size field there. Let's see. Jeff Rhodes, any inside info on how Tate Martell will be used? Well, we have speculated on that. Again, it's all speculation because no one can watch practice. We can't see it right now. But I think, Greg, you brought up some great points about how he could be used and what kind of a factor Martell could be with his offense.
Right. And I said that from day one, that I saw him in practice a year ago, and I was really impressed with his abilities. And I just feel like it brings to have a package for him at a minimum. And, again, I can only speculate, but I'd like to see a package with him, or I feel like a package with him doing what he does is very different than what Haskins does. And Tate just brings so much to the table with his quickness. He's a good thrower. I think he's becoming a much better thrower of the football. He's dangerous throwing the football, but his quickness and his elusiveness as a runner is something that this offense could really use. And, again, when you look at it, having been an offensive coordinator, having him come in creates havoc for defensive coordinators in the preparation for playing against Ohio State, and I think that's something they're going to take advantage of.
You and I have talked about this a couple of times, but I thought when Joe Burrow left, that may have reduced the package in some respects that maybe that they had for Tate Martell, simply because behind him there's not a lot of experience at all. And again, Tate Martell's he hasn't played a down of college football yet. But knowing you had Joe Burrow along with Dwayne Haskins, maybe you would have been more willing to go a little wider with Martell, knowing that if, heaven forbid, something would have happened, you had a capable guy ready to step in.
I don't think so. I disagree with that. Yeah, I think where you got to do what you got to do. It's the Earl Bruce. Everybody's expendable. I mean, you got two guys. I mean, they're athletic. They're durable. Worst case scenario, we'll deal with that when it comes. But right now, I think if they're going to play him, you got to play him. I mean, we're not playing tiddlywinks here. This is football, and you got to go out and play.
Yeah, I agree. You got to use whatever weapons you have in the package.
Yeah, I mean, so I don't see that. I think it's a question of, offensively, what do they want to do? And again, Ryan Day's got a handle on that. Does he want to lock in with Haskins and just have a one guy and a two guy that comes in when you're blowing them out, or do you bring the extra package in with Tate, to keep defenses off balance and really begin because he brings another element. I think I think that's highly plausible that that's going to happen.
Exactly. So, again, Ohio State had a open session this morning for the media to watch the team work out and stretch and get ready for today's practice. That's about all you were allowed to do with that situation. So, check our EBSN online page throughout the day. Our Taylor Ashbrook was at practice or at the media opportunity, if you will, today, and we'll be posting pictures throughout the day as well too, so you'll be able to see some of that, some video of that as well too, what's going on there. Question on our Facebook page centering as well too on what happened at Maryland, and if you have been following that at all. Obviously the tragedy there, the death of a player back in May, which has led to a lot of allegations in an ESPN story which broke about the culture of the Maryland program. They have fired athletic trainers. They have fired a strength coach. Their president apologized and said that Maryland will be accepting full legal and moral responsibility for what happened in the death of Jordan McNair. So Maryland is dealing with that right now. All the culture surrounding that is it's just a tragedy, no question about it, with the way that happened. And that's one of those situations where certainly there is speculation about that. But, Greg, I don't see how DJ Durkin survives that.
That'd be tough.
Yeah.
And again, there's allegations about how they run the program and how critical and vicious, for lack of a better term, he's been with the players and how he's treated the players. And again, who knows? I mean, how much truth there is with that. Coaches can cross that line, and I've seen coaches cross that line. Today, you can't cross that line.
No, you can't.
It's just, again, very unfortunate, but it came from the death of a player, which is horrific. That's just horrific.
And that story is ongoing, certainly, and Maryland has launched a full-fledged investigation, as you might well imagine, into that as well, too. The Terrapins open with how ironic is this? They open with Texas, and the head coach is Tom Herman.
His name's been in the news a
little bit this last couple of weeks or so. He's been his name has been rolled into all of this as well too.
Yes.
So there you go. Let me see a couple other comments here. Want to hit them before we move on to a couple other things. And again, we're since this is overtime, we're running past our schedule at end time. We have taken the ball in this situation, and we're going to go on offense first here in overtime. Let's see if I can get everything to work here properly. Well, we'll get to it here in a minute. Naturally, technology slows down. Ron Allen, don't talk it to death if there's nothing new. Don't listen to the fans, and local media needs to be more objective. So, Ron, I think that's a very good point. Local media. Well, we could do another hour on that alone. The talk shows that frequent the Columbus airwaves here. I have some insight knowledge into certainly on one of the stations about how those shows work. And you can say what you want about the people that host those shows. A lot of it is done for simply reaction and to generate calls, generate reaction. So
you want my 2 cents on that?
Please.
I don't know because I don't listen.
Okay, there you go.
End of story.
There you go. I think you don't listen, and I get that, but I think there are people that do listen and form their opinions from things they hear there. Right. And because, quite frankly, there were a couple of those shows where when this thing broke initially, they already had Urban Meyer fired. He was done. No way. He's out. And that just happens to be the flagship station that carries the games. A couple of hosts on that station had him tarred, feathered, and gone. He was out the door. There's no question.
As did the editorial writer for the Dispatch.
Well, one of the editorial writers.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and I agree. And again, that's their job, is to write opinion columns and have their mindset out to you for you to sample. And the same with some of these with these call-in shows. I think it's very similar in that regard too. But again, a lot of it is rushed to judgment. And again, I threw this out a couple of weeks. I just want to say this real fast before you get your point in. I think there are two guys locally that have done great work with this. One is Anthony Rothman. The other one is Matt McCoy. Those two have done tremendous work in keeping this balanced and not running off the deep end with all of this.
Yeah, and I just go back to, if Urban Meyer did this, he should be fired. Well, yeah, if he murdered somebody, he should be fired too. I mean, come on.
If's a huge word in all of this.
It is.
Right?
That's my point. I mean, if he broke his contract, should he be? Yeah. Well, yes, but we don't know that.
Right. No one knows that right now. So, There we go. A couple others. David Frank, it's sad that ESPN and McMurphy are covering the OSU story more than the Maryland story. We're talking about a player dying. That's a very good point. Although all I will say is this: ESPN they are the ones who did break this story about Maryland, because none of that had come out until ESPN broke this story.
Well, I think they've covered it. I mean,
they have, but I think the point is there too. Stephen Byers, I just don't understand McMurphy's reasoning on this news story that Urban should be checking all mail and packages coming in. Yeah, you know that is part of his job each and every day. It really is important about the investigation going on now. Geez, no question. That's another part of all this too. But
do you not get the sense it's like the longer this goes on, there's a thirst for more information. So it's like you got people digging. Let's just find more. I'm sure there's more to be found. And there is. I mean, as far as the he said, she said, again, this and that. I mean, it's out there, but
speculation on our part because we don't know.
Right. But I mean, how much more of that do we need? The information that really isn't relevant to what the real issue is here contractually, and what the decision is going to come down to.
I agree.
You know?
I agree. All right. A couple of things before we put a wrap on all this for you today. And again, thank you so much. Still time for a couple more quick comments or questions for you on our Facebook Live page or on our Twitter pages as well, too. Producer Jake has been watching those for us today. Before I go any further, I was talking about people in the media who do great work. I want to make certain that we throw out some get well wishes and get back just as soon as you can. I know he's starting to do some light work back now with NBC4, and that's Jared Smalley, who's been a guest on this program. There's a great picture of Jared when he was covering the Olympics in 2014 in Brazil. Jared suffered a stroke and had a heart issue within the last week and a half or so, but Jared is out and back. Luckily, it wasn't the type of situation where he's unable to function. Now Jared is back up doing some light work. In fact, he tweeted yesterday an update that he made his first solo trip since his stroke by driving up to Olentangy Orange High School, meeting with the incredible marching band there. Jared hosts as part of the NBC4 Football Friday Night program, which I think they do the best job of any of the local stations covering high school football on television here locally. Jared has been the sports director at NBC4 for many, many years. One of the best guys in this business. And I know you hear that term used a lot, but if you're going to rank guys locally who you would say are the best guys locally in this business, he's in the top 5, maybe the top 3 in that category. And so glad that he is back and up and doing what he needs to do and is getting his health back. When I saw that, it just sunk my heart right away when I heard that about Jared.
Yes.
But great to have and hear that Jared is back up and working. And maybe we'll try and get him maybe to call into our high school football show or have him come over on a Wednesday night and take part with us as well, too, again, because of the coverage they do. But great, Jared, good to see you back up and working. And we're all thinking about you here, pal, certainly at EBSN. And I know locally as well, too. Everybody is thinking about you as well, too. The Columbus Crew SC, all I can tell you is if there's a bigger shyster in this area than Anthony Precourt, I don't know who it is. I mean, here's a guy who says that we need a centrally located stadium for this franchise to succeed. And what do? They work out an agreement with the city of Austin to build a stadium 10 miles from that city's downtown. You read about all the things that have gone on with that. I don't think there's any question that looking into the background of Precourt when he bought this team, his sole intention was to move it.
Yeah, and it just sounds to me, and again, I don't know all the details, but it sounds to me like he wants to be down there, and now the city is saying, well, maybe you should go this development here. And now he's just chasing the best deal. You know, and it happens to be not downtown. And at this point, he's like, I don't care. I just want the best deal. I mean, right? So,
that's what he did. And that's apparently what he has done.
It's his toy, and he's playing with it.
He is. And, Crew SC, I have no interest in Crew SC at all. I've never been to a match, and now it looks like I'll never go to one. But at the same time, I hate to see something that so many local folks have poured their hearts and soul into. There's a great fan base that follows this team. Absolutely passionate. It's a good word. And you see that passionate aspect, I think, more in soccer than you do maybe in anything else. I mean, fans are so linked to it. I mean, you throw Ohio State football out of the mix because that's in its own stratosphere as far as that's concerned.
Right.
But these people who follow this team, I mean, they are literally invested in it.
Correct.
I mean,
they're very emotionally invested.
Absolutely. And they are so broken by this, and I can't blame them. And the Save the Crew movement, they've done a great job. I know there's local politicians involved in it. Zach Klein, the mayor of Columbus, they're all trying to keep this going, but I just don't see how this team stays here. And it's a shame, but I think that's where this is at right now.
Yeah, that's a done deal, I think.
We mentioned early at the top of the program, the Browns lost last night to the Bills, 19-17 in preseason football. Ohio's team, the Cincinnati Bengals, they're in action tonight, playing at Dallas against the Cowboys in exhibition football. Baseball last
Did
night.
anybody catch what he just said? I caught it.
The Indians were 2-1 winners over the Orioles last night.
Hooday.
And the Reds were 2-1 winners over the Giants.
My man, Icky. Did you say something about the Reds? I thought it's August. Come on. Can we just not talk about them anymore?
No, we have to mention them because they are Ohio's baseball team. 16 games under 500 right now.
Only 16. They're making progress.
That's
It was 17. Now they're 16.
Well, yeah, it's
they have maintained that.
It's a process. Rome wasn't built in a day. So.
You're comparing the Reds to Rome, is what you just said.
I'm not going to compare the Reds to Rome.
Now, maybe in the 70s.
That's right. Stephen Byers, you're a great American. Just checked in. Ohio's team Houday. Attaboy, Stephen. I like that. Nice job. You have carte blanche to reply to this program anytime you wish. Thank you. Other than that, I think we're pretty much done here. Producer Jake, do we have That's the Fact, or did you even have time to work on that today?
I got saved it for the last shot of the day as we go out here for our last time on this part of the program.
The swan song. All right, go ahead.
Right. No,
you want the whole update? Hang on. What are you doing?
Okay, I'll give you the
what are you doing?
I'll give you the whole thing one last time. All right, here you go. Just for
see, that's why.
Okay.
For the rest of the day.
The rest of the day.
I didn't hear it. I blocked it out. It did not go in there.
That's better. Facts to that.
That's the fact.
Just could have turned down the volume on your headset.
Too hard.
Yeah.
All right. Say goodnight, guys.
Good night, guys.
Good night, guys.
That's it? That's the fact?
That's it.
There was no fact. There was just
fact?
we just got the sound.
Fake.
That's that part I like.
Fake news right there.
I like that.
Again, this is where you'll find us on Wednesdays throughout the high school football season. Again, we are very excited about that here at EBSN, and thanks to our friends over at the Max and Irma's at Maxtown and Old 3C or State Route 3, Westerville Road here in Columbus. We are looking forward to that. Greg will be there. I'll be there. Cast of thousands. Our EBSN staff will be there. You can come out. You might even get to meet producer Jake when you come out to that. I tell you what, that may just put you off your meal entirely. But nonetheless, it will be a lot of fun. And again, we'll have coaches, players, the Westerville South Drumline. They're coming out on Wednesday for the first show. So we're very, very excited about that. So there you go. Anything else you care to add?
Not really.
All right.
I think we've covered it.
We have
more than enough.
Yeah, it's been a heck of a morning here. Mm-hmm. And again, thank all of you for your questions and comments. We really, really appreciate it. That's what we're trying to do here. Get you involved in what we do here at EBSN. We're interactive. That's the very name, the very definition of what this network is all about right now. We have a lot of great shows. I'm not going to run down because I always miss half of them. I do know, again, George Lehner's show, Buckeye Live, Monday night, 7 to 8, right here on EBSN. Jake's frantically trying to find the list of shows.
Yeah, because he's got to promote his show. He's not
only
a producer. That's right.
He's got a show. What's it?
He's not only a producer.
Yeah, he's a show host. Hook, Line, and Sinker. Is that the name of that show?
Very good.
It's a fishing show. Hook, Line, and Sinker.
What?
What is it?
No, it's called Sleepers, Keepers, and Lines.
There we go.
Fantasy football and some sports wagering. We had a great guest, Mike Young from CG Technology, the last couple of weeks, and we're going to have a regular Vegas report with him brought to you by CG Technology. So that'll be a lot of fun. Drafts are coming up, so a lot of good stuff coming up with Sleepers, Keepers, and Lines. Thanks for the shout out.
That show's the one that Wookie's on, right?
That is the
Wookie.
Wookie.
I missed Wookie. Yeah, I missed Wookie. So, all right. Again, when is that, Jake? Thursdays at 2? Is that correct?
Yep. Thursdays 2 to 3.
Thursdays 2 to 3.
Yes.
And Wookie will be there. All right. And again, just sample our network. It's very easy. That way, you'll know what's on there. You can pick the show that you want to watch.
Beer mongers.
Podcasts are up. You can watch replays of all these programs.
Beer mongers.
The beer mongers. So there's so many things you can watch
They're
here.
Right now waiting for us.
Oh, are they? Why are they waiting for us?
Well, they're waiting for me. Not much.
Oh, they're waiting for you. Okay.
They're not waiting for us.
I just try to be
They're
nice.
not waiting for
Anybody
us.
waiting for us? I don't think there's a question.
I don't think there's a line outside. We'll do autographs when the show's over. Meet us right out there.
Yeah, right.
Quit questioning me.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. All right. Thanks to producer Jake, and thank you again for being with us here on Overtime on EBSN. Again, Wednesday night, 7 to 9, the high school football, Central Ohio High School Football Showcase. We will be with you from Max and Irma's again in Westerville, and we would love to have you stop out and join us or sample us online as well, too. He's Greg. I'm Marty. We'll see you Wednesday when we talk high school football. Hard to believe the season kicks off on Friday night. See you then.
That's the fact, Jack.